Meet Anna, a reserved librarian with a deep love for books and a quiet life. Her days are spent among shelves of novels, tucked away in the peaceful corners of her small-town library. Anna's world is calm and predictable until one fateful day when a puppy belonging to a mysterious millionaire changes everything. This unexpected encounter sets off a chain of events that will challenge everything Anna thought she knew about love, trust, and herself. But who is the man behind the puppy, and what secrets does he hold? Always felt at home in the quiet, musty aisles of the library. A small-town librarian in a sleepy corner of the world, her days were often spent surrounded by the weight of forgotten pages and the rustle of turning leaves. It was peaceful here, safe and predictable. A comfortable rhythm of life where she could immerse herself in the written word and forget about everything else. Her days usually started early, with the sun barely peeking through the window, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air. She'd greet her regular patrons with a smile and a soft, "Good morning," before retreating to her little corner by the fiction section. The smell of old books was something she could never get enough of. It was almost like home. It was on one such ordinary morning that everything changed. The rain had begun in the early hours, a heavy downpour that showed no signs of stopping. The street outside was slick, and the world seemed to be drowned in gray. Anna had just finished her first cup of coffee when the door to the library opened with a soft creak. He walked in quietly, almost like a shadow, a tall man in an expensive suit, his dark eyes scanning the room. He seemed out of place here, with his sharp features and the kind of posture that suggested he was used to commanding attention. He wasn't the type who would normally spend his afternoon browsing through bookshelves. But something about his presence caught Anna's attention, and she instinctively straightened. "Good morning," she greeted him with a polite smile, curious but maintaining her professional composure. "Can I help you find something?" The man's gaze flickered briefly across the room before it settled on her. There was an intensity in his eyes, but also something that hinted at restlessness. "Do you have anything on dog breeding or training?" he asked, his voice firm but not unfriendly. Anna was taken aback. It wasn't a common request, especially not from someone who looked like he had 1,000 other things on his mind. But she recovered quickly and led him to the section where they kept books on pets, training, and animal behavior. As they walked past the rows of shelves, Anna couldn't help but notice the way the man seemed almost out of place. His polished shoes clicked softly on the wooden floor, and his suit felt too formal for the quiet, dusty air of the library. "This section," she said, pulling a book from the shelf. "These are some of the best books on dog training." He glanced at it briefly before shaking his head. "No, I need something more specific," he muttered. "I'm looking for a dog. A particular kind of dog." Anna frowned slightly, intrigued. "What kind of dog are you looking for?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening as if considering how much to reveal. I need a puppy, a companion," he finally said, his voice softening for just a moment. "Something I can trust, something that can be by my side." Anna studied him for a moment. There was an air of something deeper in his tone, a kind of vulnerability that was at odds with his confident appearance. "If you're looking for a specific breed," she said cautiously, "I can give you some contacts for local breeders. But if you're looking for something else, I'm not sure I can help." The man's expression darkened for a moment, and he looked away. "No, it's not about the breed," he muttered. It's more complicated than that." Before Anna could respond, he glanced up at her again, his eyes flashing with a new intensity. "I'm a millionaire," he said almost abruptly, as if he were revealing something that made sense of everything else. "But there's no one I can trust. I need a dog. That can be more than just a pet. I need a companion who can be part of my world." Anna blinked, her surprise showing only for a brief second before she gave him a measured look. "I see," she said, though she wasn't sure she understood entirely. "Well, a puppy might not solve everything, but I can help you find one. Perhaps a shelter might have the perfect match." The The man nodded absently, then quickly turned to leave. "Thank you," he said, sounding a little distracted. "I'll think about it." Later, Anna was surprised to see the man again, but this time with something small and trembling in his arms. It was a puppy, barely more than a handful of fur, with wide, nervous eyes and a coat that looked like it had been through a storm. He walked toward Anna, who was shelving books near the front desk. I found one," he said softly, as if unsure of what to say next. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I can't do this alone." Anna glanced at the puppy, noting the fear in its eyes. It seemed like the poor thing had been through a lot. Despite the man's confident exterior, there was something about him that made her wonder if he truly knew what he was getting into. "Well," she said gently, "I can give you some books on puppy care and training if you'd like. It's important to start early with them, especially when they're this young." The man seemed to relax slightly, though his expression remained troubled. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. "I've never had a dog before. I thought I could buy a dog, but I'm not sure I'm ready for this." Anna smiled, feeling a quiet warmth toward him. It was clear he was more out of his depth than he let on. "I can help," she said with a reassuring smile. "I've worked with animals before. Maybe I can show you a few basics." And so began an unlikely friendship between Anna, the quiet librarian, and Mark, the millionaire businessman, who had come into her life with nothing but a puppy in his arms and a heart full of uncertainty. As their paths continued to cross, both would discover that sometimes it's the unexpected encounters that change everything. "Thank you," he said, sounding a little distracted. "I'll think about it." Next few weeks, Anna found herself spending more time with Mark and his puppy, who he'd named Max. Every weekend, they met at the library or in the park, where Anna would offer tips on training and caring for the small, nervous dog. Mark, though initially reluctant and unsure, began to relax in Anna's presence. Her calm, patient demeanor was exactly what both he and Max needed. At first, Mark was awkward with the puppy. He had no experience with animals, let alone with a fragile, skittish dog that seemed to shy away from him at every turn. But Anna showed him how to build trust, how to be gentle, how to let Max come to him at his own pace. One afternoon, Anna met Mark at the library again. He was sitting on one of the benches, Max curled up in his lap, his eyes focused on the puppy's small, fragile body, as if it held the answers to questions Mark hadn't known he was asking. "How's it going today?" Anna asked as she approached, her voice light. Mark looked up, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Better. He actually slept on my lap for a while this morning. I didn't know how to feel about that. It's comforting, I guess." Anna smiled and sat beside him. "It's a good sign. You're making progress." Mark leaned back, glancing down at the puppy. "I'm surprised at how much I care. I didn't expect this. I thought I'd just buy a dog, train it, and that would be it. I thought it'd be easier." Anna chuckled softly. "It's never that easy. They're not machines. They're living creatures with feelings and instincts." He nodded, looking thoughtful. "I've been reading a lot about dogs, but it's different when you're actually responsible for one." Anna observed him for a moment. There was something about the way Mark spoke now that made him seem more human, less like the high-powered businessman she had first met. There was a vulnerability in him that she hadn't noticed before, a vulnerability he had clearly tried to hide behind his wealth and status. "You're doing well," Anna reassured him. "Max is lucky to have you." Mark glanced at her, his gaze steady, but there was something more in his eyes now, a quiet understanding. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Anna. You've helped me more than I can put into words." Anna felt a flutter in her chest at the sincerity in his voice. She hadn't expected to hear that. She'd been so focused on helping him with Max that she hadn't thought about how their time together might affect her. But now, as she looked at Mark, she couldn't deny the growing warmth she felt in his presence. Max shifted slightly in his lap, letting out a soft, contented sigh. Mark stroked his fur gently. "I didn't realize how much I needed this," he said quietly. Not just Max, but someone to talk to, I guess. Anna didn't respond immediately. She wasn't sure what to say, but she understood. In a way, Max had become a bridge between them, a way for Mark to let his guard down, to trust someone outside of his usual world. I think you're doing great, Anna said finally, her voice low. But you should take it slow with him. Trust has to be earned for both of you. Mark's gaze softened. I think I'm starting to understand that. About Max, and maybe about myself, too. And the dynamic between Anna and Mark slowly shifted. What had begun as a purely practical arrangement, helping him care for the puppy, had blossomed into something more. They spent more time together outside of the library, often meeting for walks in the park or grabbing coffee after their sessions with Max. It was during these moments that Anna began to realize how much she enjoyed his company. She never imagined that a man like him, so rich, so detached from the world she lived in, would become such an important part of her life. And yet, every time he smiled at her or shared something personal, it was clear that they were building something real, something she hadn't expected, but perhaps needed all along. One evening, Mark invited her to dinner. It wasn't a grand formal gesture. It was simple, just the two of them, and some takeout at his apartment. He had insisted, saying that he wanted to thank her for all her help. But Anna couldn't deny the flutter of anticipation in her chest as she prepared for the evening. When she arrived, the door opened to reveal Mark, dressed casually in a sweater and jeans, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Max was at his feet, wagging his tail excitedly when he saw Anna. I thought Max might be the one to greet you first, Mark said with a smile. Anna chuckled, kneeling down to pet the puppy. It's good to see you too, Max. Mark led her inside, and they settled into the cozy living room. The apartment was modest by his standards, far less extravagant than she had expected for a man of his wealth. The walls were adorned with a few pieces of art, and the furniture was simple but comfortable. The atmosphere felt warm, welcoming. As they ate, their conversation flowed easily. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and the moments that had shaped them. It was a far cry from the stiff, business-focused interactions they had had when they first met. There was no pretense, no walls between them, just two people connecting in a way that neither of them had anticipated. So, what made you decide to get a dog, of all things? Anna asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Mark looked at her for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. I guess I thought a dog would be easier to manage than people, but the more I spend time with Max, the more I realize that he's not just a distraction. He's a reminder of something I've been missing. Anna raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What's that? A sense of purpose, Mark said quietly, and the need to trust someone again, to let myself feel things instead of burying them under business deals and board meetings. The vulnerability in his voice struck Anna in a way she hadn't expected. She hadn't realized how much he'd been carrying, how much he had been shielding himself from the world. And now it seemed like Max was helping him learn to open up, to trust, not just the puppy, but others as well. Anna didn't know what to say. She could feel the weight of his words in the room, and for the first time, she wondered if there was more to their relationship than just a shared love of books and dogs. You're not alone, you know, she said quietly, looking him in the eyes. You have people who care about you. Mark's gaze softened, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was charged with something unspoken, something neither of them could deny. Turned into weeks, and the connection between Anna and Mark only deepened. Their weekend meetings became a routine, and Anna began to look forward to them more than she cared to admit. She found herself laughing more freely, her heart lightening each time Mark smiled at her, each time Max bounded toward her with excitement. It was clear that their bond was growing, though neither of them had put it into words yet. One crisp autumn afternoon, Mark invited Anna to a nearby cafe. He'd been unusually quiet all week, and Anna sensed that something was on his mind. "Are you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she took a sip of her tea. Mark looked up from his coffee, his expression pensive. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night," he admitted, his voice quiet. "About not being alone, about trusting people." Anna felt a small jolt in her chest. She had known he was struggling with this, but hearing him voice it so openly made something shift inside her. "You know, it's not just Max that needs me," Mark continued, his eyes fixed on her. I think I've been relying on him to fill a void in my life that I didn't even realize was there. A void that I've been trying to ignore for a long time." Anna met his gaze, her heart beating a little faster. She hadn't expected him to be so candid about his emotions, but she admired his honesty. "It's okay to need someone," she said softly. "We all do, Mark." He seemed to hesitate for a moment before he spoke again. "It's just hard, you know? I've built this life of independence. I've always been the one people turn to, the one with all the answers. But with Max, with you, I don't have all the answers, and it scares me." Anna reached across the table, her hand brushing his. The simple contact sent a spark of warmth through her, but she didn't pull away. She wanted him to know that it was okay, that he didn't have to be perfect, didn't have to have all the answers. "It's okay to be scared," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's okay to not have everything figured out. You don't have to do it alone." Mark's eyes softened, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to truly feel the weight of those words. He squeezed her hand gently, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he admitted, his voice a little hoarse. "I never thought I'd find someone who sees me, not as the millionaire businessman, but as just a person." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the shift in the air between them, the way his words hung in the space between them, charged with something neither of them had fully acknowledged before. The vulnerability in his eyes mirrored her own, and for the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge the feelings she'd been pushing down for so long. "I see you, Mark," she said quietly, "and I like what I see." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the cafe faded into the background as they shared a quiet, intimate moment. It was as if time had slowed down, allowing them both to take a breath and simply be in each other's presence. Max, as if sensing the shift, let out a soft whine from under the table, breaking the silence. Both Anna and Mark chuckled, and the tension between them lightened. "Well, Max definitely knows when it's time to interrupt a moment," Anna said with a playful grin. Mark laughed, the sound full of warmth. "I think he's just making sure we don't get too serious too fast." Anna smiled, feeling a sense of ease settle in her chest. Probably wise advice from a dog. Following that afternoon were filled with an unspoken understanding between Anna and Mark. Neither of them rushed to define what was happening between them, but it was clear that things had shifted. They spent more time together, not just with Max, but also in small, everyday moments. They explored the city, took walks through the park, and shared dinners that felt more like intimate conversations than just meals. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mark invited Anna to his apartment again. This time he seemed more certain, more confident in himself and in his feelings. "Anna," he began as they sat on the couch, Max curled up between them. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about not doing it alone." Anna looked at him, her heart racing slightly. "What do you mean?" Mark took a deep breath, his gaze meeting hers with quiet intensity. "I think I'm ready to stop pretending I have it all together. I want to be with you, Anna, not just as a friend or someone who helps me with Max, but as something more." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say it so directly, but the honesty in his words made her heart swell. She looked down at Max for a moment, giving herself a moment to gather her thoughts. "I've been afraid too," she admitted, her voice soft. "Afraid of what this could mean. But I think I'm ready too. Mark's expression softened, and before she could say another word, he reached out and cupped her cheek gently. His touch was warm, and for a moment the world around them disappeared. It was just the two of them, surrounded by the quiet comfort of their shared moments. And then, without another word, he leaned in and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss at first, slow and tentative, as if they were both testing the waters. But as the seconds stretched into minutes, the kiss deepened, and Anna felt a flood of emotions she hadn't realized she was holding back. When they finally pulled away, their foreheads rested together, both of them breathing a little more heavily than before. Mark's hand still lingered on her cheek, and Anna felt the warmth of his touch seep into her skin. "I think this is the start of something good," Mark whispered. Anna smiled, her heart full. "I think so too." Bond had grown stronger with each passing day. Anna and Mark's newfound closeness didn't come without its challenges. For Mark, the world of high society and business was never far from his mind. His past, one of immense wealth, high expectations, and complicated relationships, was always just beneath the surface, and at times, it cast a shadow over his growing connection with Anna. It all came to a head one evening when Mark invited her to a charity gala. It was the type of event that made Anna feel out of place, even before they arrived. The guests were dressed in the finest attire, their conversations revolving around stock markets, investments, and luxury brands. Mark, standing tall and confident in his tailored tuxedo, seemed like he belonged in this world, a world that Anna had never been a part of. As they entered the grand ballroom, Anna felt a pang of discomfort. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate the beauty of the event. It was just that everything felt so foreign to her. The clinking of champagne glasses, the laughter of the wealthy and powerful, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume. It was all so overwhelming. Mark noticed the subtle change in her demeanor almost immediately. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quiet as they mingled with the guests. Anna forced a smile, trying to hide the unease building in her chest. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just a little out of my element, that's all." Mark seemed to hesitate before taking her hand gently, his thumb brushing over her skin. "You don't have to be anything but yourself. You know that, right?" She nodded, though a sense of unease lingered. It wasn't just about the event. It was about the life Mark had built, a life that felt so far removed from her quiet existence as a librarian. She couldn't help but wonder if she truly belonged in his world, if he would ever truly be able to see her as more than someone from the outside. As the night wore on, the distance between them seemed to grow. Mark's attention was divided between Anna and the various people he had to interact with, clients, business partners, and old friends. Anna found herself standing on the sidelines, sipping her champagne, feeling like a spectator rather than a participant in Mark's world. It wasn't the first time she had felt like this, but tonight it hurt more than usual. Finally, as the evening wound down, Mark came to her side, a look of concern on his face. "Anna, you seem distant. What's going on?" She bit her lip, unsure of how to express what she was feeling. She didn't want to cause a scene, but the truth had been weighing on her for a while. I don't know if I fit into this world, Mark. I don't know if I fit into your world." Mark's expression faltered. "Anna, I never asked you to fit in here. I just want you to be yourself. All of this," he gestured vaguely to the opulence around them. "It's not what matters to me. You do, though." She shook her head, a mix of frustration and confusion in her chest. "But it's not just about tonight. It's about everything. The life you live, the people you surround yourself with. I don't know if I can be part of that. I don't know if I want to be." The silence that followed was heavy, and for the first time, Anna wasn't sure where they stood. Mark stared at her, his face a mixture of hurt and understanding. It was clear that he didn't want to lose her, but he also didn't know how to bridge the gap between their worlds. "I don't want to lose you," he said quietly. "But I need you to understand something, Anna. You're not some side thing in my life. You're important to me, more than you realize." Anna swallowed hard, her throat tight. But I'm not the person you need, Mark. I'm not that world. I don't even know if I want to be. Mark's eyes darkened, a flicker of frustration crossing his face. Why does it have to be about the world? Why can't it just be about us? I don't know, Anna whispered, feeling the sting of tears threatening to spill. Maybe because I'm scared too. The tension between them grew, thick and heavy, until Anna couldn't bear it any longer. She turned away, her hand shaking as she gripped her glass. Maybe we just need some space, she murmured, almost to herself. Mark didn't say anything, just watched her with a look of sadness in his eyes. But he didn't stop her when she walked away, her heart aching with every step she took. What followed were filled with a tense silence. Anna withdrew into her usual routine, spending long hours at the library, hiding behind the comforting walls of books. But no matter how much she tried to focus on her work, she couldn't shake the feeling that something between her and Mark had shifted, maybe irreparably. Mark, too, seemed distant. He sent her a few texts, but his words felt hollow, as if he were just going through the motions. He hadn't called, hadn't tried to arrange another meeting. The space between them was palpable, and Anna couldn't help but wonder if their relationship was doomed from the start. It wasn't until a week later, when she was at the library late one evening, that Mark showed up. He looked tired, worn, but there was something determined in the set of his jaw. "Anna," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "we need to talk." She stood up from her desk, her stomach flipping. She had been expecting this moment, the conversation they both needed to have, but neither had known how to start. "I know things are complicated," Mark continued. "I know I pushed you into a world you didn't ask for, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry for wanting to be with you. I'm not sorry for wanting to build something real." Anna met his gaze, her heart racing. "But I'm scared, Mark. I don't know how to be part of that life. I don't know how to be part of your world." Mark stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "You don't have to be part of this world, Anna. You don't have to be anything but yourself. I love you for who you are, not for where you come from or what you do. I need you, all of you." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. His words, so simple and so genuine, cracked through the wall she had built around herself. She swallowed, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I'm scared too," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Mark said, his voice full of certainty. "I'm here, Anna. I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, something shifted. The tension between them eased, replaced by a quiet understanding. They weren't perfect, they weren't ready to solve everything overnight, but they were willing to try, together. Pivotal conversation, something changed between Anna and Mark. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. There was a new understanding between them, one rooted not in perfect compatibility, but in honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to grow together. Mark began to adjust his life, making more room for Anna, not just as a part of his social circle, but as someone central to his day-to-day existence. They spent more time in places that felt comfortable for both of them, small cafes, quiet parks, and of course the library. He even took up reading books Anna recommended, though he joked that it was a challenge to read as much as she did. Anna, too, started to meet Mark halfway. She began to let go of her fears about not fitting into his world. She understood now that it wasn't about fitting into some predefined mold of wealth and status. It was about finding a place where they both could be themselves. No pretenses, just honesty. They didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to be together. One evening, about a month after their heart-to-heart conversation, Mark invited Anna for a walk in the park, a tradition they'd started since Max had entered both of their lives. The air was cool, and the stars began to twinkle as the sun dipped below the horizon. Max trotted ahead, his leash slack, clearly enjoying the freedom of the evening. Anna and Mark walked side by side, the silence between them comfortable. "I've been thinking," Mark began after a while, his voice thoughtful, "about what you said, about being part of my world." Anna turned to him, her heart skipping a beat. "What about it?" I think we've both been approaching this wrong, he continued, his eyes meeting hers. It's not about you changing to fit into my life. It's about us finding a way to build our own life, one that works for both of us. Anna stopped walking, the sudden clarity of his words hitting her like a wave. She felt the ground under her feet shift, as if the world were finally making sense. She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I think that's what I've been scared of, she admitted, her voice quiet but strong. That we wouldn't be able to find that balance, that it would always be one world or the other. Mark smiled softly, his thumb brushing across her hand. We'll find it. Together. They stood there for a moment, just holding hands, feeling the weight of their shared understanding. Max, noticing their stillness, returned to them, tail wagging furiously as if to say, "What are you two doing just standing here? Let's go." Both Anna and Mark laughed, the tension between them easing as the puppy's enthusiasm reminded them of the simplicity of life, of the joy of just being together. They continued their walk, the cool evening air filling their lungs, their hearts light. Fast, and with each one, Anna and Mark grew closer. Their relationship was far from perfect, but it was real, built on mutual respect, trust, and a deep affection that only grew stronger. They navigated the challenges of their different worlds, but they did it together, supporting each other along the way. Mark became more involved in Anna's life, not just as someone who helped her with Max, but as someone who genuinely cared about her work, her passions, and her dreams. He came to the library often, sometimes just to sit and read beside her, other times to discuss books that had left an impression on him. It was his way of showing her that he saw her, not as the woman who needed his help, but as the woman he admired. Anna, in turn, found herself growing more comfortable with the idea of sharing her life with him. She began to attend some of his business events, though she still felt a little out of place in the glamorous world of his colleagues. But Mark was always there by her side, making her feel like she belonged, reminding her that she was enough just as she was. And as for Max, he thrived in the love and care they both gave him. He had become a symbol of their connection, a reminder that sometimes the things we need most are the ones we least expect. Max had brought them together, but it was their shared commitment to one another that kept them together. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Max nestled at their feet. Mark turned to Anna, his expression serious but filled with warmth. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," he said quietly. Anna looked up from her book, meeting his gaze. "What about it?" Mark smiled, a little nervous but more certain than she had ever seen him. "I want us to build that future together. I want you to be a part of my life, for real. Not just as my girlfriend, but as my partner, my equal." Anna's breath caught in her throat, the weight of his words sinking in. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her heart swelled with emotion, a mix of surprise, excitement, and love. Mark had always been someone who operated on his own terms, who had everything he could ever need, except, it seemed, for her. And now, he was asking her to be part of that future, to be part of his world, their world. I'd love that," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "More than anything." Mark's face lit up, and he reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Then it's settled," he said with a smile. "We're going to figure this out, Anna, together." As the days went on, their love continued to grow, stronger than ever before. They were no longer bound by the fears or uncertainties that had once plagued them. They had found their balance, a rhythm that worked for both of them, and nothing, not their differences, not their pasts, could tear them apart. Together, they had built something beautiful, and with Max by their side, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, as a team. Later, Anna stood in the same park where she and Mark had shared that first meaningful conversation. This time, the air was warm with the glow of summer, and the sound of Max's happy bark filled the air as he chased a ball ahead of them. Mark stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, and as they watched their dog run in circles, Anna realized how far they had come. From a chance meeting in a library to navigating the complexities of their lives, they had built a life together. A life filled with love, compromise, and a deep understanding of each other. "Who would have thought," Anna said with a laugh, glancing up at Mark, "that a day at the library would lead to this?" Mark chuckled, kissing the top of her head. "I don't think either of us expected it, but I'm glad it happened." Anna smiled, her heart full. She turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Me too." And in that moment, with Max by their side and the world ahead of them, they knew that whatever came next, they were ready. Because they had each other. And that was enough. Think of this story about Anna. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.